Yeah, so I'm gonna, make a series of videos that's just gonna be focused on South Indians, uh, and it generally gives a reason for us to be proud of ourselves and happy about ourselves and all that, right? So this would be the first part, uh, and I mean, I'm gonna be talking in a mixture of English and Tamil, with the hope that this could reach a wider audience, not just Tamils, but generally all South Indians and all that, because it's supposed to be a set of happy videos for the all of us. So yeah, about this part, right? So I mean, this video one. This is gonna sort of analyze from an existential perspective, and yeah, I mean, I'll just get to it, right? So we all know that people keep saying that uh, all of the anatomically modern humans came out of Africa. That is, uh, you know, apes evolved into Homo sapiens, and then almost all of the modern humans. I mean, there are other kind of subspecies of the Homo that occur in other places as well, but anatomically modern humans, it is believed that all of them had their origins in Africa and then came out of Africa, right? Um, so everyone came out of Africa, and then you see all those T-shirts that say, we are all Africans and all that. But what does that mean? So what does it mean? So everyone came out of Africa. Is this thing of pride for Africans just because everyone came out of Africa? Uh, no, right? You, I mean, let's say you're comparing two groups, right? So let's say you're comparing, let's say Chinese versus Africans, right? So, like I said, going with the supposed out of Africa theory, which seems to be, the very, the plausible one. Okay, let's just do a comparison between Africans and Chinese, right? Africans and Asians. Um, so you make a comparison between two groups right after they separate from each other. So for like hundreds of thousands of years, they've all had, both the Chinese and the Africans had common ancestors who lived in Africa, right? So their standard of living when they were in Africa was the same. So when you analyze two different groups, you start analyzing from the point when they both separated, right? So this is what people say happened. There were a couple of migrations out of Africa, it seems. So the first migration was, along the Middle East, and then it came down to, I mean, people traveled along the coastline, came down to India, and then went to Andaman, down to Australia, and all that. So this group of people were the ones who are the Jarva tribe in Andaman, and who are probably the Australoids in the Australian aboriginals in Australia, and some of the other tribes in Malaysia and all that. They look kind of distinct and all that, right? So that um, so from like 100 people in Africa, probably 20 to 30 ventured out and formed these Australoids and the Java and all that. So that was the first out of Africa migration, and then there was another out of Africa migration, right? So this time when they came out, some ice age thing happened, and then the Central Asia, Eurasia part became covered with snow, and so people got trapped and all that. So what happens is, what Stephen Oppenheimer, the one of the leading, or the most credible person in anthropology as of now, or something like that, he says that a group of people were trapped in India, and some of them were trapped in Africa, and then every other, and then most other people of the world came from the population that was trapped in India, right? So these population, they are the ones who went again to China, Indonesia, and Korea, and all that, and then they again ventured back north west, back to Pakistan, back to Iran, back to the Caucasus region, and the Levant, and Arabia, and Lebanon, and Syria, and Europe, and all that, right? So now, when they were in India, they had those primitive features, primitive facial features. They didn't have the Caucasian facial features. They had the Mongoloid or Chinky facial features. As you can see with the tribals in India, that is the facial features that this group had, right? So so what happens, right? So these guys went back to the Caucasus region, and or let's just say Central Asia, right? And then they developed the Caucasian features over there. The M17 genetic marker arises over there, and um, you can see from the genetic map that is on the screen right now. This is a rough diagram of the possible origins and the migrations of the genetic haplogroups and all that. They're not exact. There's a lot of politics involved, and uh, as to which thing originated where, and the timelines of the genes and all that. But generally speaking, as you can see, there's a flow of these haplogroups from the Central Asia, from the north. I mean the Levant, which is Syria, Lebanon, or the Caucasus region, which is also kind of up there, just to the right a bit. But it's what it indicates is that a group of people from there, they entered back. I mean, they went into Europe, and then they stayed there for a while, and then after that, a group of people from Europe, from Caucasus, from the Arabian region, they made a migration down south back into Pakistan and India, right? So all the way from Europe to South India, it's Caucasian features. I mean, it's Caucasian people, right? So let's just get the again. I mean, the timeline here is important, right? So I told you that a group of people were trapped in India. Those the tribal population of India came. They again ventured back to the Caucasus region, right? And then they stayed there for a lot of time, and some of the population went into Europe, and the earliest caves of I mean the earliest cave paintings in Europe occur around the year 45,000 BC or something like that. So a lot of these people went into Europe. I don't know, they probably got mixed with the Cro-Magnons or something. uh, some That's probably how we got the sharp features. So all these Caucasoid features, it occurred somewhere in Central Asia, Eurasia region, right? So now let's imagine what has happened. So right, I already told you about the first wave of migration out of Africa, which is 100 African people, about 20 or 30 ventured outside, probably more ventured outside, became the Java, became the Australoids, became uh, other primitive people living in other parts of the world like Fiji or something like that. And then there was the second wave of migration, which uh, you know these were still again Mongoloid Chinky people. They came and they settled in India as the tribals of India, and so yeah, so probably from like 100 Africans again, 10 or 20 of them, they came down to and India, and then went to China and all that. So I'm giving this number uh, 10 because it's because this Africans are the greatest genetic variety within a group. what I mean is like humans and chimps, right? Humans and chimps, we share 98.8% of our genes, right? And within humans, we share about 99.3% of the genes. Like the farthest two humans genetically would still share 99.3% of the genes. And this genetic variation, right, is highest amongst Africans, right? The rest of the world, our genes are like 99.8% the same. It's only within Africa you have a variation between from 99.3 to 99.8, right? So what it means is from the 70 uh, from those 70 people in Africa, only 20% came outside of Africa, and then they constituted the rest of the world. So success wise, let's say these two groups have separated now, the ones who stayed in Africa and the other ones who ventured out of Africa, right? So the 20 who ventured out of the Africa, they expanded and they've become a lot in number, they've become more advanced, um, and all that. So the ones who are in Africa, they only number about, I don't know, less than a billion something right now. Whereas the 70 became less than 1 billion, whereas the 20 became more than 5 to 6 billion or something, more than 6 billion as of now. Um, so the group that emigrated out of Africa was the most successful group, right? So let's just talk about the second tribe, the second wave alone now. The first wave is just a handful of Aborigines and Java and all that. So let's focus on the second wave. So these guys came into India, and then and then they went back to they went back to they came to India, and they let's just say there were 100 people in India, right? And out of the 100, maybe 50 to 60 or even maybe even more, they went eastwards once the things started clearing, once the once the condition was favorable to my movement and all that. So from this population, from 100 who are in India, like 60 to 70, they went eastwards and they formed the Chinese, Indonesians, Japanese, Koreans and all that. And the remaining 10, they stayed in India as the tribal population of India. And 20% of it, they went back westwards and they became the Caucasians. They probably mixed with, I mean, even the Chinese, these Caucasian guys, they carried the Neanderthal DNA and the Cro-Magnon DNA, right? And yeah, so these guys went to this 20 people, they went to the Eurasia region. They probably settled in the Arab region first, that Levant region, the Lebanon region first, and then they also entered into Europe. So this 20, they probably became, let's just assume they became 100, right? Actually, they probably became a lot more, but let's consider, let's take that as a percentage. So whatever the population was in Europe, those Cro-Magnons and the cave paintings that you find in France and all that, right? All those people. So uh, so they expanded in number, and from there, so from 100 of them, maybe 5% of it came eastwards back again. These Caucasians who were present in the Central Asia, Eurasia region, the Caucasians with all these haplogroups that you see in the figures in the image, sorry, they ventured back east, right? So and then they became they started the Neolithic revolution and all that. So these people, right, the ones, the first Caucasians who were there in Central Asia and the European steppes. So these guys were hunter gatherers. They were just hunting, gathering. They were not really that sophisticated. So the ones who came down to, so from the European region, who settled in that Levant region, right? Uh, these are the guys who first started the Neolithic revolution. So in 10,500 BC, there was the first Neolithic group which was there in uh, that Levant region. So the ones who came down from the European steppes onto the Levant region, they became more successful. I mean, let's say so from 100 people in Europe, five came down to the Levant region, and they were more successful because because of the Neolithic revolution, they had so much food, they just lived peacefully, they expanded in number, right? So now from 100 people in Levant, five went down, went eastwards into Iran, right? So in Iran, the first signs of Neolithic, all those agricultural practices, the first sign of that was there in 8000 BC, right? So and then for 1000 years, people expanded a lot in Iran. The climate was good and all that. And then again they ventured eastwards into Indo-Pakistan, Indus region, right? So from about 100 uh, people in Iran, 5% of it went into Indus Valley. So make this comparison here, right? So from 100 Eurasians, 5% went down to the Levant, and they expanded a lot in number. So the guys who came down to Levant were obviously more successful than Europeans. And again, from 100 people in Arab, uh, five came down to Iran and became the Persians, and they became a lot in number. So the Persians are much more successful than the Arabians. So again, from the Persians, from about 100 Persians, five came to Indo-Pakistan, and they became the people of the Indus Valley civilization. And the first evidences of Neolithic practices in the Indus Valley civilization starts in 7000 BC. So all these facts you can look up and just do a general research on the internet about Neolithic civilization. You can see that it's what are the evidences, right? So this group of Caucasians starting from Europe, and so far the cream, the ones who've had the best, so they've entered India now, right? And so they formed the Indus civilization, in Saraswati civilization, and they ventured eastward, and then they formed the Ganges civilization and all that, Ganga civilization, right? So again, same, from 100 North Indians, 5% came down and became us South Indians. And South Indian population is also quite high, really quite high. Let's say from 100 North Indians, 5 came down, and and then started the Neolithic practices down south. So, and the evidences of the first Neolithic revolution in Tamil Nadu is it's not even to the 2500 BC. So what I'm saying is, North Indians and South Indians had common ancestors for about a period of 5000 years between the 8000 BC and 2500 BC. Um, actually, yeah, it's more about 6000 years we've had common ancestry in North India, right? And after this, 5% of the North Indians came down south, and they became the present day population of South India, right? So we've been very successful in expanding into the huge number that we are. So obviously, we have less genetic diversity amongst us, but um, calling a group a mongrel is more of an insult. Mongrel is a mixed group, a mixed bastards or whatever. Calling a group mongrel is it's more of an insult than calling someone inbred. Um, Let me tell you why. I know that if people say you're inbred, it means that you are supposed to have not so good genes and all that, right? But seriously, you are what you are. If you're inbred or whatever, you are currently what you look and how healthy you are or how intelligent you are. Just because someone calls you inbred doesn't mean that you're any less of a person. But there's a downside to if someone calls you a mongrel. Let me tell you why. Um, let's take the case of Iran. Sorry, not Iran. Let's take the case of Italy, right? So it's like Italians are generally dark-haired people with that olive skin and all that. But if you see a lot of northern Italians, they have blonde hair and blue eyes and all that. That's because North Indians are basically those Italians who were, fucked by the barbarian Germans when, the barbarians invaded Rome and all that, and then ended the Roman Empire. So North Indians are a mix of Germans and Italians. So if you say Italians, Italians, you guys are a mixture of Germans and Italians. It means, or when you say that this group is a mixed group, it means one of the group has conceded territory to some other group, has lost, as there's been confrontation and there's been a lot of disdain in the past, and one of the groups is a loser group amongst them, right? So the Italians in this case are the ones who have lost their territory, and so the southern Italians, pure Italians, they would feel bad that, you know they are northern Italy is supposed to be full of mongrels, and even the northern Italians, they would feel bad because they carry half Italian genes in them, which means that Italians have been losers at one point, so they carry half loser gene, and it also means that when two genes have mixed a lot, there's been a lot of confrontation and all that. I mean, generally, if Italians have spread in huge numbers all over the world, and so have Germans, even Germans have spread a lot in the world, that is something to be proud of. But if you say that you're a mixture of two groups who have occupied or who have been restricted to only little territory, it means you are carrying loser genes in you, right? So, I mean, you got to think about it, and I mean, feel why I'm saying that being a mongrel is a bad thing, right? It means that you are carrying some sort of you carry genes which have lost territory and lost territory to people. Um, so, but like I said, we South Indians, we don't have that much diversity in our genes, but like I said, a small portion of people from Iran came, not Iran, from Iran came to North India, and from North India a small portion came down to South India, and we expand a lot number. So every time you see a South Indian person, you should be happy about the success of the that you carry, you know. So I mean, it's not just you. See, why do you feel happy for the success of your brother? Maybe, I mean, your brother or sister. They only share your mom, parents' affection and resources with you, right? So you should be hating your siblings, right? But why do you like them? And it's not just your brothers and sisters, you also like your cousins, and you affect, I mean, people are so such stalwarts about their community and all that, right? And it's not just humans, even the animals. There are self-sacrificing, uh, not beasts, there's something else, self-sacrificing amoeba that that dies to protect other amoeba when there is some, even amoebas conduct war, it seems, on wherever there is food or something. And so self-sacrifice and having empathy towards other genetically close things is uh, a part of being a living thing, right? Is So so you should just look at the other South Indians and just feel really happy about how successful you've been. So it's like the cream of, if you look back, us South Indians are the ones who have had the best existence in history. Like I said, the from the 100 Europeans, the five came down and had a good existence in Levant. Five from that 5% came to Iran, and from that 5%. So, and even looking back, right? So Africa people are still, they've been living as primitive people for a long time. Like the Africans never invented the wheel, they never invented the plow. They didn't know how to they didn't even domesticate an animal. They just carried everything on their heads. So they were such primitive people until they had to wait up until the white guys came and did all that, right? And even Europe was, it sucks to be in Europe without electricity, because cold climate is a biological cause of depression and all that. And looking back, the GDP of India has been 35% of the world's share for the last 10,000 years or something. Not the 10,000 years, but 5,000, more than 5,000 to 10,000 years. Yeah, up until from the 7th century, 7,000 BC to 2000 AD. So, but 9,000 years we've had. I mean, yeah, just just Google Angus Madison and you know what I'm talking about. 35% of the world's GDP we had here in India. So amongst Caucasians, we are the ones who had the best life. That is evident from the population of India historically as well, compared to Europe or Arab or what all those regions. And so existence wise we win. It's like, take the example of the US. About Britain had about 40 million people or something. So from that, let's say 5% of the Anglo-Saxons went and occupied America, right? And then the Anglo-Saxon population of America is now 50 million, right? So the 5 million Anglo-Saxons from Britain who went to America, expanded in number 10 times. But the ones who stayed in Britain, their population level is pretty much the same. Probably just a 2% or 3% increase, or probably 5% increase from 300 years back, right? So we are like the Americans, who ventured out, who found new land resources, who who had access to all of that, who expanded a number a lot. And then how we also, South Indians are also a bit more mature. We think a lot. We've I'm gonna make a couple of other videos as well as to why I think South Indians are more intelligent and all that. um, uh, so we are quite good. So we are, our culture is very, it avoids a lot of confrontation, and it's a very well thought culture. And so we've had really good existence, you know in South India all this time. um, Only now we're having to confront other cultures. And then now when now the game's changed, it's not a closed society anymore. In globalized societies, you have to be more aggressive, more um, non-conservative and all that. So I'll make a video. I'll be making a video about that in the next part. um, but so far we've had a really good life. We had good access to resources, and we've lived really well so far, right? So we are like the Americans. But all this Dravidian Aryan bullshit that says South Indians are not Caucasians, South Indians are Australoids. It says that we are like South African blacks. South African blacks, they had their territory, but then the white man came and he killed everyone. He killed all the blacks, took their land, took their money, and he started dominating them. So the Dravidian theory says that even Dravidians are primitive tribes like Australites who did not really invent anything and who were just eating rats and all that. But but it's the opposite. We are the most successful Caucasian group so far. We are not some losers who are not. We are not some primitive tribal people who lost our territory to invading forces. We are the latest people. We are the latest Caucasians who have lived a lot, right? And now our um, we number a good 500 million or something like that. So yeah, so we've been a really successful group. Like even amongst Europeans, right? There's so many different groups, right? You have Celtics, Angles, and Saxons. Anglo-Saxons are basically Germanic and Nordic people. Like Nordic people are from Sweden and Finland and Germany and all that, right? And then Celtic people are something else. They are the Irish people, and they are different from the other Slavic people like Russia, Ukraine, and all that. And then you have Baltic people who are the Eastern Europeans like Bulgaria and other places like that. And then you have Hungarians, Huns who are who have been mongrelized by Attila the Nun and all that. And you have Greeks who are basically Phoenicians and Italians who are also Mediterranean. They don't belong to the blonde Baltic or Slavic or Nordic groups. They are a Mediterranean group. So these people, right? All these people are different people. Let's say I told you about the original 100 in Europe, right? So let's say there were 20% was Slavic, 20% was Mediterranean, 20% was Nordic and all that. So from that, some 5%. So these guys were 20% of the population that existed in Europe. So, and even now today put together they only number less than a billion. They only have 900 million amongst them. So from that 100, 95 became only 900, but that 5 has become 3 billion. Right? Some in some in the Middle East, Arab, Levant, and all that. Some in Iraq, and some in Iran, Persia, Afghanistan, and some in Pakistan, some in India, some in Bangladesh, some in Sri Lanka. Even all those places like Maldives and all, they were all actually South Indians, right? Maldives is actually Malay Teevu. Malay is a necklace, Teevu is island, right? So it's island shaped, sorry, necklace shaped islands. Though. Anyway, so those guys are all ethnically South Indians, and they also have their own history and all that. So just imagine the enormity of success that we people have had so far, right? So it's okay that if you think that people are coming down to our cities and the North Indians are dominating and all that, it's fine. North Indians, we have a lot of, like I said, we've shared. We we are really close to North Indians genetically speaking, and even otherwise we've had so much more success in expanding um, um, and having access to all those resources and all that. So um, so let's say that now people are gonna come down and we're gonna travel abroad and all that, and we're gonna get mixed and all that. So even if I don't know, maybe 20 North Indians come down and take up our territory, like our resources and our wealth and all that. So if one South Indian can go back to North and do it, it's done. It's the equivalent, because in the past we have expanded 20 folds compared to them, right? And we've expanded even more so compared to Arabs or Europeans. So now when South Indians go and settle in US or UK or all those countries, So we are, it's like, it's really unfair that we get to expand so much, having lived well for so long. So from an existential perspective, so we are the newest Caucasians, the most successful Caucasians, and Caucasians are obviously above the Mongoloids, Chinkies, and the Negroids according to the Darwinian scale. And not only that, like I said, from the population that entered in India, 70% went on to become the Chinese, and the 30% went on to become the rest of the Caucasians. So the Caucasians now outnumber the Mongoloids by a lot, right? So there's so the 30% who Caucasians, the 70% uh, who went on to become the Chinese, or 20% Caucasians and 70% Chinese. So that 20% has become so many Caucasians today. So we outnumber the Chinese. So we are the most successful group according to all those Neolithic facts and what's happened so far and all that. So I mean, I know I sound really bigoted, but I am supposed to. I'm gonna sound this way. So this is what I mean. This is how it's gonna be the next couple of videos as well. It's. I mean, this is what I think. I think that we are the most successful people. So we've lived so well. I mean, so far, and even now, if we were all, if we were to mix up and occupy the territory of the world evenly, only if we reduce our population by 100th or 1000th, it would we would sort of equalize with some of the other groups, right? So yeah, I mean, we're not gonna reduce to 1000 folds that easily. We're also gonna have kids. We're gonna have good life. We're gonna travel abroad. We're gonna mix up. We're gonna spread our genes and all that. That's all gonna happen. So we won't shrink to 1000, 1 in 1000. There's no genetic or ethnic cleansing happening of South Indians. So we have it pretty good. So just assume that even if we were to sort of reduce like 1 in 500 or something, I mean, uh, we were to reduce our population 500 times, we would still be a normal group, who's had a good past. So keep that in mind, and just, you don't have to be so anxious about a lot of things. Um, considering that, thinking that you have to survive, you have to do this, do that, and all that, right? So just know this, that you've lived really well for all this long, and just be happy about it, right? Right. So I will make some more videos covering some other aspects of it. So stay tuned. Those are going to be really interesting as well.